This is going to be Vicente Luque versus Ian Machado Garry. I'm tuning in for this fight, definitely. This is gonna be a fun fight. So Vicente Luque, he's 22, 9-1. He's coming off of that decision victory over RDA, and he is fighting Ian Garry, 13-0, 5-0 in his last five. Ian Garry, I believe, is coming off of that knockout win over Neil Magny, I believe. And right now, the younger fighter will be Ian Garry. He's going to be the slightly taller fighter as well. Luque actually has a 2-inch reach advantage as well, so that's a pretty interesting. Actually, I was mistaken. I think the win was a unanimous decision against Neil Magny, but I swear I could remember that he knocked him out or something. But it was actually a decision win over Neil Magny there. Fight odds right now for this fight, we have Ian Garry at minus 375. So the odds are definitely widening. He was a minus 250 favorite, and he opened up at minus 250. Now he's a minus 375. And Alex, yeah, I'll let you start off with the main card as well. What do you think about this fight between Vicente Luque and Ian Garry here?
So yeah, the odds are a bit wide for me to want to play this personally. I actually do think there's still some question marks to Ian Gary's game that we just haven't seen yet, particularly in the grappling and wrestling department. Um, so when I watch Ian Gary, his striking is so smooth. The way he's able to utilize his jabs, kicks, he really has like the full um, wide range of striking abilities. Um, what I'm really interested in is Vicente Luque's game plan in this fight. I think if he gets into a striking match with Ian Gary, it's game over. Because Vicente Luque, he gets hit a lot, doesn't really have that much head movement. But what I'm interested in seeing is if Luque is going to kind of, implement a grapple heavy game plan. And what I mean by that is, when they're, face to face in the cage, if Luque can, potentially pressure him, get him backed up against the cage, and then, just push him against the cage for, the majority of the round and steal wins like that. Um, that's going to be pretty interesting to see because I kind of think that's his, path to victory. Especially, in Vicente Luque's last fight against RDA, both fighters were kind of just pushing each other against the cage. So Luque definitely has, that pedigree to implement that kind of grapple heavy game plan, especially again, like I keep going back to this with um, Machado's like kind of uh, thin frame. I feel like Luque can have some success doing that. And again, we've also seen Ian Gary get randomly cracked by fighters like Song Kanan. Um, so in terms of a bet, I wouldn't. I'm looking at the over 1.5 as a potential parlay piece. Feel like Luque is, a pretty durable guy, and especially if he does go with that game plan of just hugging him against the cage, I can see that hitting. And then I also wouldn't mind like a long shot bet for like a Luque submission victory. If he can get him to the ground, find a submission, he can that can be like a juicy juicy pick right there. But yeah, that's kind of how I'm looking at this fight. Should be a really exciting and interesting one.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a super fun fight. Potentially fight of the night if things go well here. So Vicente Luque, good striker. I think that he is a bit of a brawler, though. He's proficient in the looping shots, Muay Thai strikes, good power. Has pretty good lead hook and can work in counters and combos. I do think that Vicente is maybe a little too comfortable getting to firefights. It's worked out for him in the past, but he was KO'd by Jeff Neal in his last loss in the UFC. And I think that ever since that loss, his willingness to get into brawls has lessened because he talked about having a brain hemorrhage, brain bleed. So that really affected kind of his career going forward. He looked a little less aggressive in his last decision win over RDA, worked in a lot more grappling, takedowns. I do think that he has a good grappling prowess. He can hunt for subs on the ground. He has 5 subs in the UFC. 33% of his UFC wins are by submission. He has a black belt in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu and has decent ground and pound on the top. I think that for this fight, I just feel like I'm leaning Ian Garry. The reason why is I think that Ian's going to be a slick and smooth striker. He has the skill set to mix in the punches and the kicks. Accurate striker. His striking reminds me of the Conor McGregor saying, precision beats power, timing beats speed. This guy is a really highly accurate striker. He flows through his combos and attacks all 3 levels, the head, the bodies, and the legs. Just look at his last fight with Neil Magny. He was chopping this dude's legs, comboing him in the body and the head, just working him all over the place. He pumps out good volume and has good accuracy, so that can just be overwhelming for most opponents. I think that Ian, the one detriment in his fighting style is that he does need to improve his striking defense. He leaves his chin exposed as he backs up and attempts to strike and counter. That was shown in the fight where he almost was KO'd by Song Kanan pretty badly. But the good thing about that fight is that it showed me that Ian does have some decent durability and recovery. He came back from that knockdown that Song put on him and actually ended up KOing Song near the end of the fight. So just going back to his grappling background, Ian does have a background in judo. He's able to mix in some takedowns when his opponents are worried about his striking. I believe that he took down Neil Magny twice. I don't think that this fight is going to be played on the ground or grappling too much, though. I think that Ian has Vicente covered on the feet, and Vicente, I believe that he's going to try to implement the same game plan that he had for RDA, but taking down an undersized 39-year-old welterweight in RDA, it just doesn't have me convinced that Vicente will be able to ground Ian for long. So I think that Ian will sprawl and brawl his way to either a decision victory or a late KO. I just don't trust Vicente after saying he said that he had a brain hemorrhage, and I feel like he looked he looked less of himself, like a lesser version of himself in the last fight in RDA. People also kind of forget that that RDA fight, it was a close fight in terms of the rounds, right? It was like I think some of the judges' scorecard was 48-47. So it was a super close fight. I will say that Ian Garry by decision or KO. The only reason why I'm not locking this guy in a parlay right now is because of everything that's going on around him. Like I have no idea if this is like affecting him. I don't think it should because when he's in the cage, I feel like he's just gonna style out there and kind of free flow. But I don't know. There's a lot of nasty comments right now that are coming in. This guy's blocked his social media. The press conference is going to be crazy. I don't even know if he's going to show up. Honestly, like Kobe Covington's going to be there. Like this is going to be tough for him. So the pick here is Ian Garry, but I think I'm going to probably stay away just because of the price tag and everything that's going on around him. I just don't trust it too much. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he puts on a masterclass. Is all I'm trying to say. But I just don't trust this guy's mental abilities right now compared to what he's dealing with.